You do number 1, Paul number 2. Back here, back here.
No,
I
we
don't
still have more. Wait a minute. This is only the, oh, you got
These are these 3 in the back.
What I'm gonna just next to it. I'm gonna say, is everything ready? And please remove.
And where are you now? You're in the back?
What are you reading now?
Yeah, so, just for this, for the resolutions. We have to keep going. Keep going. You're gonna do number 3. You're gonna do number 3.
Where? What are we doing? Read.
Second one.
What am I doing?
First one. This, it's right here now. What are you doing? My title on it, right here. Yeah, just the ball. You're doing the first one. That's all.
This one here.
Yeah.
This here, we don't need this. We're not doing it.
It's gonna be ready for the next meeting.
We're gonna vote on it. We're gonna introduce it next week.
Yes, that's what I mean. We're gonna vote on it next week. So today, we don't need to do it.
Well, all of these we vote on next week.
Yeah, exactly. So the only thing I'm gonna have to vote on next. So just to, yeah. Huh? Oh. Carol, let me know. One day. Really? Yeah. Oh, my body. No, 1 day on the beach. Yeah. Township Parsippany-Troy Hills Township Council Agenda Meeting, August 14, 2012. Public invited, public participation. Meeting called to order by myself at 7:35 p.m. Please rise for a flag salute. Mr. DiPiero.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You have a moment of silence for George.
Roll call.
Councilman Carriffy.
Here.
Councilman DiPiero.
here.
Councilman Farrer. Not here. Mr. Vigilante.
Present.
Mr. Stanley.
Here. Others present. Mayor Barbario, Jasmine Lim, Business Administrator, John Inglesino, Township Attorney, Carol Kehoe, Acting Township Clerk. Purpose of this meeting is to set the agenda for the regular Township Council meeting, August 21st, 2012. Formal action may or may not be taken. Statement of compliance. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the requirements of open public meeting law, following a notice in the office of Township Clerk, posting a meeting notice on the bulletin board, municipal meeting, December 15, 2011, where it's remained since that date. Legal notice appeared in both Daily Record, Star Ledger, forwarded by fax to other local newspapers, local radio stations on December 19, 2011. Note, council meetings are videotaped, aired on Cablevision, Public Access Channel 21, 2 p.m. Sundays, available for viewing at www.parsippany.net. Okay. Ordinances, second reading, public hearing. Everything set for next meeting?
Yes, they are.
Okay, we are going to be removing 2012:31.
Further discussion, or?
Yes, it's open for discussion at this time.
No, I'm saying we're removing it to, why would,
Okay, I will offer an explanation. This was the ordinance for the waivers that we were going to grant so that tenants had an opportunity to, put one, Jimmy, put yours down. I think that's going back to you. This particular waiver thing could get way out of hand, and it could be abused in many ways. It's something that maybe we should not do. When you create, I learned this many years ago, and I try not to violate, but when you create an ordinance to help one family or one small group of people, but your ordinance affects the entire town, usually that's a wrong decision. Because of the magnitude of our town and the diversity, you don't want to have something that just to help out one small group. It's usually not the right thing to do. So the conversations I had, the people that have called me with all kinds of what-ifs, okay, this can create one huge nightmare in the buildings department to try to administer, and it's just not a good thing when you create that. So the consensus of the Township Council at this time is not to provide a waiver process.
And that's for the occupancy, for the waiver for guests, or?
No, there's actually, if I may, there's actually three parts
Right.
to the ordinance. The part that Councilman DePiero was referring to would be the third part, Section 3, which includes a waiver provision that would, under the provisions set forth in the waiver provision, enable the requisite person from the administration to grant a waiver of the ordinance requirements with respect to occupancy. That was done at the direction of the council based on a previous council meeting, and was always intended to be, it was not intended to be a permanent solution, if you will. It was intended to be a temporary solution to provide relief to a resident who addressed the council. And then the thought was that there would be a meeting with all of the stakeholders to try and craft a more permanent solution. That was one section. The other section deals with additional factors that can be considered for habitability, which actually strengthens the stacking ordinance. And also, there's a provision that regulates guests. Currently, there is no regulation of guests, and what we're being told from the enforcement folks is that a defense that people have to overcrowding is that a person is a guest, and we don't have a provision that regulates guests. So this provision actually strengthens the ordinance from an enforcement standpoint, because it's the first time that the town has actually attempted to regulate guests, and it permits one guest for 2 months. So if somebody says, well, that person's a guest, now they're limited to a certain period of time. And the last section, or it's actually Section 2, clarifies an ambiguity in existing ordinance with regard to exactly what the area is. Depending upon how you read it, there was a discrepancy as to whether or not it was 50 square feet per person, or whether it was 70 square feet for the first occupant and 50 thereafter. And this ordinance clarifies that issue as well. So the ordinance actually contained a few different pieces, the waiver, of course,
Well,
being one of them.
you can't pass a portion of an ordinance, so I suggest we defeat this one, rewrite a new one with the other two provisions. However, there's another provision that we've been talking about. When the township goes out to inspect apartments, okay, the advance notice, okay, that, tell the superintendent we're going to be there next Tuesday, and next Monday there are 25 or 30 rental trucks taking out bedrolls, that kind of a thing. The advance notice actually is very poor, and it defeats the whole purpose of the inspections. So if we're going to rewrite this, then I think we need a third section that talks about this advance notice. It should not be advance notice. 2 hours or 4 hours or 3 hours should be sufficient, not 4 days or a week or whatever.
Well, I have a couple
We have
questions.
to make sure the superintendent is there.
And this question, the first one's directed to Councilor Inglesino. What is the law, in regards to what Mr. DePiero is asking, or saying, if the town's going to go do an inspection on X complex, and they're going to do 20 apartments in that X complex, do they have to provide notice at all? Can they show up at 9 o'clock that morning?
I think they do, but obviously we'll take a look at that. We're not going to provide for an ordinance that's in conflict with state law. So we'll
Okay.
take a look at that issue and make sure. I understand what you want to accomplish from a policy perspective, so we'll craft the ordinance in a way that provides the township with maximum flexibility with minimum requirement to notice. It'll be the bare minimum.
Could you also find out what the requirement is for, like, what if the tenant says, no, I'm not letting you in? What's the recourse of the town or the complex? If you could, please. And then my other question is to the mayor and the administrator. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, you guys asked me to get this drafted up. My thought is this. We had a resident come to the council meeting in regards to the fact that she had a 4-year-old child and that she would be evicted because she wasn't complying with the ordinance. I don't think the ordinance intent should ever be that if you live in a 1-bedroom apartment and you have a child that turns 4 years old, that you either get evicted, because that's not stacking. You have a child in a 1-bedroom apartment, that's not stacking. And what I was asked to do was to go to the township attorney, trying to find a way where we could prevent that from happening. And this was the way to do it, through the waiver process. Last thing I want to see happen, I'm sure as well as you, Councilman, is to see people get evicted because they have one child that hit a certain age. And that's what this, if you, in essence, kill this ordinance, then I think what would happen is the individuals that came to us, we'd have to abide by the ordinance from this point on, and they would be removed from their premises.
Well, I'm not saying kill the ordinance, or at least remove. Is there a better way? I understand Councilman DiPiero's concerns, as well as some of the residents that spoke before in the last meeting. Maybe let's just pull it tonight and have further discussion on it, because there's got to be a better way. You know, you're right, because if somebody turns 4, now you got to move out. You know, and like you just said, the key to this ordinance was, and when we developed the last time I was on, was the stacking. And just so folks know, you know, it's kind of, you know, if you talk to some of the folks in the apartment owners, and they've gotten a lot better at this, but the problem now lies in the single-family homes. It's not the apartments as bad as they were. They've gotten almost, I don't want to say 100% better, but they've made some great strides and improvement in enforcing the stacking within their apartment complexes. Yes, they still have a little way to go, but I'm going to tell you right now, the single-family homes, that's where the trouble lies also. So I agree that we pull it, you know, if the other
I understand the
then we'll
concern. I
try to
understand.
fine-tune it a little bit better.
I understand Councilman DiPiero's concern, because if you give a waiver, what does the waiver, what does it open it up to? And maybe we have to actually take a deeper look into the ordinance to prevent, because basically what happens is this: you have a mother, I mean, you have a husband and wife with a child. Okay, the whole intent, and I could be wrong, is that you're looking at parking issues now. Well, the 4-year-old child doesn't drive. Okay, well, you know, what do you do now? You remove that family from that complex because of that
Maybe we need to
process?
clarify what stacking means. Maybe we need, but rather than a waiver process, which opens a can of worms, which I'm opposed to, maybe we need to better define what is stacking.
Well, Councilman, again, I want to reiterate that because of the time constraints, because the administration...
Well, take the time now, you know, we're
Well,
going to kill this one and let's do it
No,
right.
what I'm saying is that this family that came before the council, there isn't time at this point to wait, because the clock is ticking on the time that they would be evicted. So the concept was, again, that the waiver would be a short-term measure to provide relief to this family, and that then we would take the time to meet with the stakeholders, obviously the policymakers, and try to come up with a better long-term solution. At least that was the concept. The waiver wasn't intended to be a permanent solution. It was intended to be something that would provide some relief to this family. That's the direction that I received anyway from the council that night. And again, we would then work to try and craft a better long-term solution.
Mayor, and I understand there's a time constraint, is there a way that if we table this tonight, that you make a phone call to the apartment complex and just tell them that we're still working and crafting this to make it a little bit better?
I don't think they can. The problem is that you have, when you have a law on the books, the administration is forced to follow the law, and the apartment complexes are also forced to abide by the law.
Is our ordinance that specific?
Yes.
It is. It's
Yes.
not subject to interpretation.
Not in terms of the process and the timeframes, no.
What I'm asking is, okay, does a husband and a wife and a child 4 years old constitute stacking in a one-bedroom apartment?
Under your
by
current
our ordinance
Yes, it
today?
does. There's a clear violation under your ordinance as is written today.
If I may, at our last meeting, I voted no, and I actually used the term that it would open up a can of worms. By granting waivers and the way it's crafted now, I disagree with letting it go through now and then trying to recraft it, redraft it, because it's just prolonging. I'm all for trying to make it more stringent and so that we can enforce it. I've talked to many of the police officers, many of the firemen, EMS in town, again, working at the sheriff's office. I see it, and the firemen and police and EMS in town have told me they go into some of these apartments, there's mattresses laying all over the place. You give them any kind of leeway, even an hour, they'll get the mattresses out with the inspections. If we start granting certain waivers, every single person that comes in, you could have the next day, we grant a waiver for a certain particular incident. The next day, 100 people walk in with that same predicament. We have to say yes. Because you granted it for one, you have to grant it for all. So I think we need to keep it stringent, or it's just going to add to our stacking problem.
Well, in regards to, and the councilman makes a good point, but when it comes to the fire districts, the director of zoning and planning, Jennifer Collins, explained to them the ordinance because they were misinterpreting the ordinance as that we were allowing bedrooms to be added into a one-bedroom apartment by dividing it with walls. That wasn't the case. This ordinance didn't do anything like that whatsoever. So after she spoke to them, they felt more comfortable with the ordinance. But you need to, really, the decision that comes down to is, are you willing to grant the waiver now? And if not, then we need to look further into the ordinance to prevent just that one situation, because I think that's just the main concern.
I wholeheartedly support your efforts to look into this individually administratively, but I do not want to see us grant waivers.
If I may ask, do you know what the time frame is for the family, or can I ask them, or?
It's pretty immediate, from what I understand. They may know better than me, but I think it's a pretty immediate.
We're asking the actual date.
I think the enforcement folks were sort of waiting because I think there was an anticipation that an ordinance with some relief would be forthcoming. If there's not,
Well, I don't think it'd be appropriate for them to say, well, nothing happened last night, you have 24 hours anyway, so why can't we look into playing around with the ordinance where it doesn't, you know? Because I don't agree with the waiver either.
well, again, I think that a permanent solution to the issue is not one that will be quick, because there are a lot of stakeholders involved who we've heard from. So it's going to be soliciting views from a number of different folks, and then, giving those over to you, and then crafting an ordinance that meets your policy directive. So that process will take some time. I mean, I think it's going to take a couple of months to do. If it's
I understand there's a law in the books, there's an ordinance, and you have to enforce the ordinances. There's a lot of things that don't get enforced only for lack of manpower and time. I mean, and I understand it might be inappropriate if the mayor or the administration were to call the ex-apartment complex and talk to them, but I just don't, I don't want to, like Councilman Creepy said, I don't want to backpedal on this. I'd rather do it right once and that's be done with it. But I'm sure that if we don't introduce this tonight or finalize this tonight, or next week, that it's not going to be where they're going to get evicted. But would it be, it's one of those things, again, I hate to say this, but if, we drag our feet on it a little bit, not meaning the enforcement part of it, I think the residents that came up here and spoke, and I'm sure they'll be back up tonight, they were concerned they weren't concerned about this one person not being helped. That's not stacking, a 4-year-old turning 5 or a 3-year-old turning 4. Their concern is that what we had in the ordinance might open up the floodgates or the doors for other things.
And that's why that's why the waiver provisions were written the way they were, because it's not an easy thing to get. Again, it's not a permanent solution. But I mean, from an enforcement perspective, I think it's very difficult to tell the administration to disregard the law, or to tell the apartment owners to disregard the law on a selective basis. It puts people in a very difficult position. from that perspective, if there isn't going to be any action taken for a couple of months. And that could complicate matters even more in terms of other people then coming forward and saying, well, you're not taking action on this person, why are you taking action on that person? And that, from a legal perspective, could complicate our efforts to actually enforce the ordinance the way it was intended to be applied.
Thanks. We're gonna pull it. We're gonna pull it.
We're gonna have to pull, see if we can find a time frame for them too, with the eviction at this time.
Okay.
Okay, entertain a motion to pull
I make
2012.
a motion. Pull it.
Motion by Mr. Karifi, second by Mr. DiPiero. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Mr. DiPiero.
Yes?
Mr. Vigilante.
Affirmative.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes. Motion passes. Status of adopted ordinances. Consent for Operation Cablevision, 2012:29, adopted date, July 17, 2012. Mayor's action, July 19, 2012. Effective date, August 15, 2012.
Skip 2012:32.
No, they're set for next meeting. They're all good. I only did the one because we were pulling it. Scheduled meetings, 8/21/2012, 7:30 PM. Regular meeting, public invited, public participation. 9/11/2012, 7:30 PM. Agenda meeting, public invited, public participation. Discussion, NJDOT construction project, Route 80, I-287 interchanges, request for waiver of noise ordinance.
The DOT, as a courtesy, has requested a waiver from our noise ordinance so that they could work on the project in the night hours.
We have a number of residents that are here regarding that project.
Are they willing to move
My question...
staging area?
My question to council members, the township attorney, and to the administration is, I knew we knew this project was coming along, and it will provide improvements, to that intersection, and the intersection will be safer. That's all good stuff. But did anybody in the township know where they were going to place their work site and their machines?
No.
And did anybody in this town know what the detour route is going to be so that they can pull their machines in and out of Littleton Road?
Well, we have a meeting for that tomorrow, but just let me read if you don't mind, Councilman,
Okay.
because I asked Justin Leza, and I'll read this. The work being done on Route 202 across from Kingston is not officially part of the project, but the contractor is using a lot owned by the state DOT. So I asked him the question, why weren't we invited to the pre-construction meeting?
Exactly. That was
And-
part of my question.
Right, and as a staging site, they will keep their equipment and store materials here for use on the project. The DOT granted the contractor permission to use the lot and allowed a lane shift on Route 202 to provide safer access into and out of the lot. This is just from our engineer. Typically, the staging areas are discussed at a pre-construction meeting since they are not part of the bid package. We did not receive an invitation to the pre-construction meeting because the person who usually handles it was on vacation. However, the contractor started working on the staging lot a week or so ago, and this was dated on, I don't know what the date is here. Oh, August 2nd. And the engineer from the DOT is overseeing the project and is aware of the residents' concerns. He will be responding to each of them in a few days. And this was then. But we have a meeting tomorrow, and I have gotten some information from the resident, from Mary Bazicki, and we asked if we could have a resident at the meeting with us, and they declined,
Who declined?
the DOT, because this is their meeting.
Oh, wait a minute now.
So
We were not invited to a pre-construction
Right.
meeting, okay, because they screwed up,
right.
okay? Let them correct their screw-up, and let's demand a pre-construction meeting now, where they cannot exclude us.
There's a meeting tomorrow, and what I'm going to recommend is that Mary, who's giving me all the information, come to my office tomorrow morning and brief me on the concerns, which I have most of them anyway, Mayor. And I will be at that meeting.
Wait a minute. A pre-construction meeting is open to the public.
Well, this meeting, there's a meeting on September, what, 13th?
No, that's,
For the
that's
public.
after, that's after the
I
fact.
know, I understand
That's after
that,
the fact.
and I
Wait a
understand
minute,
all that.
we need to, in my opinion, okay, Parsippany Township needs to reach out to the top echelon at the DOT and say, you screwed up, you did not invite us to a pre-construction meeting, we want one now. Okay?
I will talk to them tomorrow morning.
That should be a demand from Parsippany Township.
Right.
All right? And the public should be invited. My concern is the safety down in the Lake Parsippany area, just like Mary Pasicki's is. And how is this traffic, if they're going to have it routed down to one lane on Littleton Road during commuter traffic time?
But we don't
This-
know that. I mean, and that's...
We don't know that,
Right,
exactly. We
exactly,
don't
and that's
know that.
why, but here's the thing, and I agree with you, Councilman, and stuff like that, and tomorrow when I meet with them, I'm going to be very adamant, so you don't have to worry about
They
that
owe us
whatsoever.
they owe us a pre-construction
They
meeting.
do.
I want it.
I agree there was a pre-construction meeting, and we're very frustrated with them for not even contacting us about the meeting in regards to this project. That being said, though, like I said, Mary, I need you to come to my office tomorrow, because I know, I went to Mary's house, and you brought up a lot of great points, and we've had Justin Leza in contact with the DOT as well. So they're aware of the concerns, but from this point on, we need to know what they're going to do from this point on.
If I may, one of the things that you said was that they said it was going to be safer for their equipment,
Right,
getting
that's
it in and
what it
out.
is.
Okay, it may be safer for their equipment. I travel that way very frequently, and the lane change shift, for instance, that they've done, there's still, the original lanes, or the painting is still down, they're new lanes, it's a very dangerous area the way they have, and actually a car in front of me, whether it wasn't paying attention or what, it actually continued the original route, which would have been a problem. And like a gentleman came up before the meeting and stated that he lives right in that area, and if you have traveled it, there's no more shoulder on the right-hand side.
Right.
So now you're going to have kids walking to school, going that way. He brought up a point about snow. When they plow, the snow is going to go up on the sidewalk there, and the way it's set up, so I mean, yes, maybe it's safer for their equipment, but to me, I mean, it's become very dangerous for
It
cars
is.
traveling and for the residents in that area.
And it is, and I, in regards, I travel that route just as well on the way to Mary's house, and I even said to Mary, this is just unacceptable. And that's what's going to be reiterated tomorrow, that this is unacceptable. When you're rerouting and you're putting the cones up as if, this is the way to go, you're absolutely correct, Councilman. It's the same route. Only difference is it seems to be closer to the shoulder than to make it safe. Because you're right, those pieces of equipment are going to be coming out. And I'm going to be addressing that tomorrow.
What about the law enforcement aspect?
We will have the deputy chief, I think is going to be at that meeting tomorrow.
There'll be someone from the police.
Yeah, someone from the police department as well.
Probably traffic.
I still think they owe us a pre-construction meeting. We have to go back to even the location of that is bad.
Okay, Mayor.
What?
You have anything?
Oh, I do, yes.
Oh. We can talk about it.
Okay. I just want to take a moment to congratulate Parsippany-Troy Little League East for their Mid-Atlantic Regional Championship. I have to tell you, it was one of the most exciting games I've been to. Roy, it was better than a Yankee game. I felt like I was rooting for the Yankees. I have to tell you, the way these young men represent Parsippany, we should be proud of them, and this is why. They got, out of the whole regional, they got the award for sportsmanship of the entire tournament. They were great sportsmen. Every time another kid on the other team got a hit, they were so gracious, and I have to tell you, we couldn't have a better bunch of kids representing Parsippany. I was with Councilman Stanton at the game, and of course we got to keep our composure, because when we get to these types of games, you want to root like you're rooting for the Yankees, but you can't because you're around all these parents. But they did a wonderful job, and when they come back, we're going to have something for them. So they did a great job, and I want to congratulate them, and I hope they go all the way. I really do.
If anyone's interested, tomorrow at Modell's, they're selling shirts. for the regionals, and every penny from the shirts goes right to the families and
Right,
kids.
because they're,
And Modell's tomorrow.
There
Yeah.
was an article on Patch from one of the team managers, I guess, talking about the expense of these tournaments and now going to the World Series, the additional expense, the hotels, the travel, the food. Some of these coaches and managers have used up their vacation time or taken time on leave without pay, just to be there for the kids, and they're asking for donations to help subsidize some of these costs. The town council has all agreed to, we're putting together $500, and we're donating it to Little League East to help some of those expenses.
When it's all said and done, the families are away from their home 21 days.
21 is total.
21 days. Okay, administration. Everything set for next meeting?
Yes.
Okay, first resolution. Mr. DiPiero by title only.
Ordinance for introduction, and ordinance amending Chapter 405.
No.
What? Oh, down there.
Yeah.
Resolution authorizing the expenditure of open space trust fund monies for preservation of historic properties, Craftsman Farms.
Second.
Motion by Mr. DiPiero, second by Mr. Vigilante. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Mr. DiPiero.
Yes.
Mr. Vigilante.
Affirmative.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes. Mr. Grefi, number 2.
Resolution authorizing the township's entry into administrative agreement with Sunrise ShopRite of Parsippany, LLC. Motion to authorize the township's entry into administrative agreement.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Grefi, second by Mr. Vigilante. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Mr. DiPiero.
Yes.
Mr. Vigilante.
Affirmative.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes. Mr. Vigilante, number 3.
Transfer of plenary retail distribution license Sunrise ShopRite of Parsippany LLC.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Vigilante, second by Mr. DiPiero. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Mr. DiPiero.
Yes.
Mr. Vigilante.
Affirmative.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes. Township office reports. I'm only going to read the ones with changes. Everything else is no change. Noise waiver, Route 80 improvements. I think we already discussed that.
Well, so you don't want it on, at least not on the consent agenda?
No, not right now, no.
All right.
Everyone agree? Okay, yeah. Major soil movement permit extension, Church of Living Grace, Block 740, Lot 4. Board of Adjustment granted a 1-year extension to the major soil movement permit until July 11, 2013. This office has no objection to the extension, recommends the Township Council extend the permit and agreement until July 11, 2013 by resolution. In favor?
Yes.
So we'll put it on?
Yes. And New Jersey Transit bus stops. New Jersey Transit is proposing 5 new bus stops at the following locations: Sylvan Way, eastbound near Century Drive; Sylvan Way eastbound between Century Drive and Dryden Way; Jefferson Road southbound between Webro Road, East Halsey Road. No objection to the proposed bus stops. Section 405-29 of the Township Code will need to be amended accordingly.
Put it on.
Yes. Chief Financial Officer?
You're all ready.
Okay. Township Office Committee's correspondence, results of the 2012 refunded bond sale.
I'm sorry. It's,
Okay.
just so that you know, the refunding, we saved $1.3 million over a 10-year period. And we went from a 4% interest rate to 2.37, I think.
Very good.
Applications, person-to-person transfer, plenary retail consumption license to Intercontinental Hotels Group Incorporated. Ready for next meeting?
Who is Intercontinental Hotels Group?
What's the question?
Who is Intercontinental?
It's the little hotel that's behind Tara.
Of the Sierra
That's
Suites?
how, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, before we go into public hearing, Mr. Creepy, on the address.
Question for the mayor. Back in March, when we were doing the budget, I had asked about the surplus with the sewer, and since it was approximately about $7 million and it was continuing to grow, we were told that it was 95% completed, 95% paid for. If we could look into refunding, giving back some of the money to the residents. And then I believe, Jasmine, you said that that would be very difficult to do. So if we can't do that, can we look into immediately lowering the rates, the sewer rates, since that is continuing to grow? Can we?
Oh, well, I've stated that's what we are doing. We're looking into it. We have a consultant looking into lowering the sewer rates based on, you know, like you said, the plant's complete, 95% and pretty much at 100% now. And what could we lower that rate to? Because from that point on, of course, you lower the rate, what's going to happen is each year your surplus is going to decrease, as you know. So, but we need to keep a certain amount of surplus in there. Not only that, it affects your bond rating if you go under a certain amount. But yeah, we are looking into it. We have a
I'm saying
consultant.
to try to determine a percentage.
We are.
So that it won't go below what we need, but, you know, I mean, as long as it's continuing to grow,
Right.
that's money that people.
And that's
can
what
put in their
that's
pocket.
exactly what the consultant's doing.
Did
Go
we
ahead.
have
say how long?
A timeline?
Well, I actually thought we'd have it by now, but he's there's some other areas he's looking into in regards to the sewer, and we can get a hold of him tomorrow because we have been waiting for
Look,
certain.
if he says we can do.
Whatever he comes up with, we're
we
going to
can
do
right away.
Yeah.
Just, Mayor, I remember years ago, there was, people may not understand, I understand why, maybe we could just give the Reader's Digest version of it. Why can't we give the surplus back? Why can't we go and send everybody a check? I know, you've explained it to me.
All right, let me
Just
give you
for
an
the record.
example. You start taking surplus and giving it back, it affects our bond rating, okay? We need to have a certain, well, according to the bond, certain portion of surplus in each utility as well as the general fund. If you start giving money back, you might have to increase the rate again because you just can't give money back and then you increase the rate later on. You gotta make sure this is proper, it's right, and that's what we're doing with this consultant. Because what we don't want to do is lower the rate too much, and then all of a sudden we have to raise the rate. Because remember, over a course of time, the rate wasn't increased, and that's why in 2006, well, actually in 2005, you had a 26,000. I could be wrong with numbers, deficit in the sewer utility. And then heading into 2006, you were looking at a $700,000 deficit in the sewer treatment in the sewer utility there. So what had to happen in 2006 is you had to take money from the general fund to put into the utility because, as you know, Councilman, your expenses cannot exceed your revenues, and that's what was happening. So then in 2006, I guess around in March, and I wasn't on the council at the time, the council then had to increase the sewer rate by 52% because the utility had to be viable. And it was a painstaking decision, but in essence it had to be made because you would have been into another deficit. So now, as time went on, of course, the 52% increase, we started having surplus, and then in 2011, as you know, I used $700,000 of that surplus, put it into the general fund. And then this year, I did the same thing with $550,000.
When you said you took money out of the general fund to cover the deficit in the sewer utility, and then we had to increase the rate the following year so we wouldn't have the same problem, do we pay that money back to the general fund? In other words, if the general fund, say in 2006, like you said, or 2007,
I think it was
we moved $700,000 in a transfer, do we eventually move it back, or is it?
Well, if I used $700,000 in 2011, we put it into the general fund. So actually,
Okay.
We
in
did that
essence,
already.
yeah, we did
No,
that.
I understand what you're saying, and you've explained it. I just want to make sure
I mean,
the public
you know what?
understands.
The sewer treatment plant was dilapidated. It needed to be refurbished, and for several reasons. As Councilman DePiro has been on the council longer than I have, in regards to the process that's taken place and why it had to take place, because it wasn't maintained for over 16 years properly. Okay, so now, in that process, there had to be determination of what we were going to do. Were we going to not refurbish it and continue to deplete our surplus? Well, now we have a sewer treatment plant that's state-of-the-art. saves approximately in energy costs from last year to this year, almost 70%.
I just want to correct you on one thing when you said it wasn't maintained properly.
Yeah, I was going to react to
Just
that,
so the
too.
folks know that it's more the DEP and the EPA, when they come out with these different requirements and mandates, and we're trying to keep up with that, that's one of the biggest issues we had. Plus the fact that it's just old, you know.
Sewer treatment plant was built in the 60s, and the technology that they used to process the chemicals back in that time period is antiquated, and the equipment was old. And from that time when it was built, every time the EPA came out with new requirements that we had to remove some other ingredient out of the flow, we put up another building and created another chemical process to remove whatever it was they wanted to remove, in layman's terms. And so we had a multitude of buildings down there, too. The whole process was archaic. When I took the tour down there many years ago, when George Rankowitz was the superintendent, he was showing me all of the things that it's not just that the equipment was old and a very, very heavy user of electricity. The process was old. Wayne Township, who the same size of Parsippany, processes 15 million gallons per day, just like Parsippany. They were using 70% less electricity than Parsippany was to process the same amount of sewage. The reason being, they built it about 15 years later, and the processes had changed. Not just the equipment, the processes had changed. And so the push that we made here on the council, back when Jamie was on the council, the push we then said we had to upgrade the sewer treatment plant. It's not just replace fans and blowers and compressors, it's upgraded to the new processes. That has now yielded a 70% reduction in our electric bill, and we were the third largest user of electricity in the energy company's power grid. And it has vacated 2 complete buildings where we needed chemical processing to take place, are vacated now because of the improved technology that we are now using. It's a huge improvement. My question about rate reduction is that we have several towns, portions of towns that tie into Parsippany's sewer treatment plant. So if we gave money back, we have to give it back to those towns too, in their percentage, I would assume.
I don't think
No,
We don't have to give it back to them?
no. We charge them based on our actual operating costs for...
Just
for the-
operating costs?
Yes.
Mayor, when do you anticipate the recommendations from the consultant?
I can't give you that answer tonight, so I'll speak to the consultant tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, I got a question for Mr. Inglesino. Looking into the limousine companies and the licenses, I think it's about time that we do a complete overhaul of our ordinance. I'm going through the addresses, I've been talking to the secretary's clerk's office, and it just seems like, I guess, we're the stopping point for people that get denied in different towns. Plus, they're using the same addresses, probably 4 or 5 businesses all have one address. I'm not sure what the other towns do, but can we look into redoing the ordinance?
Sure.
All right, thank you.
I agree.
All right, one other thing. I mean, I feel bad for him, but, and I'm sure you two go to the same gym as I do, but it's probably a law enforcement problem. We have homeless people sleeping on the benches outside our gym, and in the past month or 2, it's starting to pick up. So, I mean, at least 3 or 4 people, they're sleeping on the benches outside the gym, all different hours during the day.
They actually sneak in and use the showers or the bathrooms in the morning.
So, if we could look into that. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to open this up to the public. You'll be given 5 minutes to speak.
That will be the time.
If you're going to speak, please come up. You know, you can sit in the front rows if you don't mind.
Try to get gym members.
My name is Ray Vigano, 16 Whitewood Drive. I'd like to make a couple of comments. One on the sewer surplus. Obviously, the plant needed refurbishing, upgrading. You've done it. That's fantastic. The real issue is, what are you going to do with the $6 or $7 million? Okay? A refund is complicated if you try to do it in in reimbursing through checks or whatever. A temporary rate reduction, I don't think would be that complicated. We've been hearing from the mayor for quite a long time that they're looking into it. In the corporate world, somebody just asked, when are we going to have it? Why doesn't this council start acting like managers and say, Mayor, we need this information by such and such a date, and figure out how you can return this money to the people? A temporary, just like you're talking about a temporary waiver for the occupancy, you have a temporary rate reduction, you use up $6 million. It's not rocket science. And then you increase the rate if you have to. Okay? Figure out how long you're going to take to reimburse $6 million if you reduce the rate. Pick a number, 2%, 5%. It's not rocket scientists. I don't know how much you're paying a consultant, but I think your water utility people should be able, and your business administrator should be able to figure that out. The other comment I'd like to make is about this variance waiver business. I read that ordinance, and I think you're right. The intent may be good, but you're opening up a can of worms. It's too complicated to enforce. I was shocked, actually, and surprised to hear that this was driven by the concerns of one family, one person. The intention might be good, but I don't think that's the way you run a town. Okay? Again, temporary. You have to define. You have an ordinance for a reason. There's safety. There's emergency issues. You have so many square feet per person. Okay? However you define this and reword this, the issues that